Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not in my suit and tie, of course, but I'm doing a live podcast episode after the Republican debate panel for you guys today. This is an extra episode for you all, of course, to kind of talk about what goes on because this is very important to talk about like these type of things, right? It's election time. We got to talk about Republicans for a second because Democrats don't want to have a panel. So with that said, today, all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go through my personal opinions, my overarching thoughts about the entire panel, and I'm going to go candidate by candidate on who I thought did the worst and who I thought did the best at the end of the day. Obviously, I'm going to try to be as objective as possible, but I will let you know when there's certain things that I like based off personal bias. So, obviously, the person who got kicked off the island, if you get that reference, let me know in the comment section. The person who got kicked off the island for this panel was Hutchinson. So Hutchinson didn't arrive for this one. And I also let you know who I think is not going to be arriving for the next panel, of course. So, in my opinion, who I think did the worst in today's panel was by and far Mike Pence. I think Mike Pence did an absolute terrible job today because I don't think he answered really any questions. And that was my biggest issue, that he was ducking so many questions. And when they talked about the economy, all he did was blame Bidenomics for the economy and didn't really take into consideration any accountability he had being in the State Department or being in the federal government, despite constantly referring to any things that he thinks are successes to his own merit, being the vice president, and saying, oh, I supported this and it was good, so vote for me, is a lot of things that he referred to as his main style rhetoric for today's panel. So that is just not good enough for me, if I'm being honest. And if you're going to blame Bidenomics, fine, because you are Republican. But at the very least, you got to have something a little bit more concrete and specific to lean to and how you're going to solve everything. Not just say stuff like, oh, Bidenomics is the reason why the economy is bad. I'm against Bidenomics, so I'll make the economy good. That doesn't really push anything in the proper direction. And that is my big issue with Pence regarding that. Again, he didn't answer any question. He was asked a specific question regarding DACA. Now, if you don't know what DACA is, it is a organization, or it's an act, more specifically, that helps children who are raised in America from illegal immigrants to gain certain types of privileges so they can become a citizen and get, naturalized properly in America. And they asked Pence in regards to this because Pence and Trump basically had a position of getting rid of DACA and taking it to the Supreme Court. So the person asked, if DACA gets abolished, if they don't have any more DACA, what are you going to do for a solution for the dreamers, i.e. the children of illegal immigrants who just were brought here based off their family situation? They had no choice. They were brought here, now they're getting raised here. So what are you going to do to help them? Or are you just going to send them back to Mexico, bags packing? And basically all that Pence did in this situation was nothing. He didn't answer the question. He avoided the question. He didn't even touch the question. He didn't even say the words DACA. He didn't say the words dreamers. He didn't even bring up, he referred to immigration, but he didn't touch that at all. He avoided the question. Again, another big issue for me when it comes to Mike Pence is he doesn't answer questions. Another part that they brought up in regards to mass shooting, he referenced mass shooting as well. His solution to deal with mass shooting was they should get the death penalty. And by that, we make it quicker for us to kill them in jail. Not years, months. Pence, acting like that's the solution is ridiculous because mass shooters aren't mass shooters because they fear for their life. Mass shooters are mass shooters because they are done with life. A lot of them kill themselves. You quicken up the death penalty is not going to do anything. It's not going to be a deterrent. There's no proven facts that it deters mass shooters. So acting like quickening the death penalty is supposed to be some all-encompassing umbrella solution is idiotic. What are we talking about? Just because you hate the mass shooters doesn't mean it's going to decrease the amount of mass shooters, which is the point of the question. Again, you're just like you're saying some romanticized language, which I had issue with some people in the first debate panel. Next thing they brought up, it is return power to state. What did I write here? I'm reading my notes here because I was writing notes throughout there. To COD, return power to states. I think this was referring to healthcare. I don't remember what I was referring to. If you know what I mean, let me know in the comments. He said they asked him in reference to LGBTQ violence. They said certain members of the LGBTQ fear for violence against them and feel like they will be under, or basically they'll be discriminated against. And Mike Pence avoided the question. He didn't answer the question. All he said was, "Oh man, I support all people, including LGBTQ. So, thumbs up." Again, not referring to it, not addressing anything, not addressing the people, not adhering to the people, because we know that there are people part of the LGBTQ community that are Republican. Those people do exist. So basically what that tells me is that you don't care about the violence and discrimination upon them. Because regardless of how you feel about the agenda, the ideology, or any of that, there is violence against them. Like, let's not be ignorant. Okay? Moving on. What else did Pence talk about? He said something good. So this is one pro I give for Pence. He said peace comes through strength. Because he was referring to the Ukraine versus Russia situation, compared to Vivek and Ron DeSantis, who want to pull out of Ukraine. Mike Pence is under the philosophy that we have to show how powerful we are, so we don't allow Russia and China to become more powerful, and we don't allow Russia to gain more influence by taking over Ukraine, instead of precedent to allow China to eventually think that they can invade Taiwan, because we know if any of these places invade a NATO country, world war will happen right on the spot. So that's a good thing he brought up. He also brought up the fact that they, under Trump's administration, they were a net power, number one in the country in terms of energy export. So that's another thing that they should incentivize as president. So shout out, he gets some credit there. And then he wasn't answering questions later on. I forget what exactly the question was. So Mike Pence, in my opinion, performed the worst. If I had to vote someone out, I think Pence probably should just get out of here. Who performed second worst based off everything? In my opinion, I would go Chris Christie, right? I think Chris Christie performed the second worst. Different from DeSantis, who wasn't really answering questions that was answered directly to him. Chris Christie's strategy on today was bring up Donald Trump, attack Donald Trump. That is basically it. When they were talking about the government and the economy, what did he do? He brought up Donald Trump from not being here and that he's a fraud, basically. When they were talking about he attacked Trump when he referenced Russia, saying that, Trump had relationships with Russia. He attacked Trump when they were talking about, vote on a board on who you want to vote out. And he said Trump, even though the question was, other than Trump, since he has a sizable lead, who would you vote out? And he still said Trump's name. He attacked Trump when he said, when he brought up the criminal justice system. And his probably the clip moment for Chris Christie is his thing regarding Donald Trump being Donald Duck. Donald Duck, because he's not here today. So that was a lot of Chris Christie's rhetoric today. And that really kind of paints the picture of like he didn't really say anything of substance other than attacking Trump, which I'm all for to a certain extent. He did say he would bring about an executive order for the border, to have the National Guard sent to the border to kind of secure it. He said that's something he would do if he was president. He also said that he's pro school choice, so allowing parents, families, and kids to choose the schools they want to be at. I mean, I'm not a fan of school choice on a federal level, but that is something he is a fan of personally. He said something good here. He also blamed teacher unions for the public schooling system being not great. I disagree with that. I think blaming teacher unions for the entire thing is very lazy. He also tried to attack Joe Biden for this because he said Joe Biden is sleeping with someone who's part of the teacher union. I think he was referring to his wife. It's a very cringe thing to bring up, if I'm being honest. One positive thing that I can say about Chris Christie is when he talked about AI technology. So they asked him a question in reference to AI technology and the fear that workers have that AI are taking people's job, robots are taking people's job, a fear that is very valid to have, if I'm being honest. Like there are certain things to bring up in referencing that conversation. For Chris Christie, he said something very smart in my opinion. He said you can't be afraid of innovation, and that AI is good for society as a whole. We have to work with technology as it continues to advance, because with the increased amount of technology and innovation in our country, that is a better quality of life for Americans as a whole. I agree with that sentiment, and that is something that thing right there is something that I preach personally as a good thing, that we have to continuously adapting to our progress, and looking back will never solve our problems. That's just ignorant to think so, right? So that's a very smart thing that he brought up. I agree with that sentiment. He also brought up something in referencing abortion. So they're talking about abortion. They're talking about how you would appeal to pro choice voters, and his sentiment, which was also pretty smart, is he's not really going to appeal to them, but he's going to appeal to another value that they may value more so, and that is we should be pro life but pro all life. And he said you would make sure that we should get better treatment for all life in America, so better quality of life. Which the example that he brought up is like if a 16-year-old is on drugs and he's like depressed, we need better systems to help this 16-year-old get out of the dirt. That is something I agree with, of course, that we should definitely increase the quality of life, which is something that it seems like he's a fan of. So Chris Christie, that was a very big positive for you. But with that said, I do think you did the second worst in today's panel. Next, I would have to go. Personally, I don't think it's necessarily as it's tough here. If I'm going by performance, personally, I probably would have to go Tim Scott. Personally, Tim Scott, I thought did the worst. I think there's a discussion. I'm gonna say the other one already because I think you guys already know who the top three is here. I'm gonna say the other one already. I think Burgum and Tim Scott are arguable. The only knock on Burgum, in my opinion, was that they were not giving him any time to speak, which was the biggest problem I had. Burgum was not given time to speak, and he was not given time to really flush out his opinions. So that's a big problem for Burgum's case today. But I'll talk about that more when I talk about Burgum. So Tim Scott, to kind of go through my notes. Tim Scott, and let me make sure. Do I have notes on these other pages? No, I have notes about Tim Scott. Okay. All right. So when they were asking about unions, when they were referring to labor unions in America, Tim Scott didn't address the union question. He kind of escaped by it. I don't really remember what he said, but I just remember that he didn't really address the point itself based off like the economy, because I'm getting my memory back. The conversation was about, labor unions and the strike and Biden being on the front lines. And instead of answering the question or even addressing the question how they'll deal with that, I don't remember what he said, but he basically avoided it and kind of just blamed Biden. Don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's what he did. I could be wrong, but I just know he didn't really address it. He did talk about, when they talked about daycare, which is something they brought up to Tim Scott specifically, he did talk about this and how we can improve the daycare system. More so, he kind of just blamed Biden for it getting worse, saying that Biden created a bill that increased the amount of daycare for each individual. He said that it was originally $15,000, and because of Biden, it increased to $29,000. I don't know all the context behind it, but this is what Tim Scott said, so I'm just regurgitating. I'm not even saying this is facts. He's saying that it also increased taxes, of course, and this is all bad. I would fix that, something that he was referring to. He did say that he's against born he's against illegal he's against automatic citizenship, against he is not in favor of automatic citizenship for illegal immigrants, kids that were born in America. So he's against their automatic citizenship. I completely disagree with that notion, but we'll get into that a little bit more detail with another member, of course. He talked about Vivek. He kind of took a shot at Vivek when he talked about how he used to be partners with he's partners with someone that was a Chinese organization that partnered up with Hunter Biden. So a little bit of a not Russian, Republican shot for Vivek being a Chinese colluder. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. There was a funny part about it where they didn't go to Tim Scott for a while, and something he brought up is like, are you having trouble seeing me? That was kind of funny, but for a moment he didn't answer a question for a large period of time, so I feel him for that, of course. Another thing what he brought up out of nowhere is, I forget what they were talking about necessarily, but he brought up the fact that they should bring the black fathers getting kicked out of the home has been ruining the family, basically has been ruining a lot of things for the black community. It's a very popular rhetoric for the Republicans, black Republicans. I'm just messing up my words, right? Been live for 3 hours, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologize. If you're enjoying the content and my narration and my analysis, feel free to like the video. If you're watching the video, support the podcast by going to www.purplepoliticalbreakdown.com. If you want to be a guest, feel free to email me, or if you want to support it, go to the Patreon, subscribe, rate it 5 stars. I do appreciate you, of course. So that's a popular black Republican rhetoric regarding, the government created a way of life that separated the black family. So that's something you brought up. He said he wanted to strengthen the black family to create a better culture, something that people can get into. He did school Vivek when he referred to loans sent to Ukraine. He did reference that 90% of that was loans, not just money given to them, and that if the Ukraine doesn't pay back, we'll get paid back by NATO. Very excellent point, schooling Vivek's international foreign policy knowledge. He's also against Russian military intervention in Ukraine. We want to deter Russia. We don't want them to get more powerful. He's also, one thing that he is a fan of is when it comes down to dealing with potential disaster. They asked a very weird question. So they asked the question in referencing, how is the president of the United States, you're going to prevent or help prevent a natural man-made disaster such as 9/11? And his response is that we should have better intelligence. We should rely on that intelligence and be more prepared, which is a very good answer if I'm being completely honest. He said he's pro balanced budget amendment for the economy in terms of setting a budget for our federal spending, and I'm guessing state spending as well. And he created a program to get more jobs, grow the economy, to help with the economy and the national debt. So he did all right for what he did, just not great, but he did what he could. Next, I would have to give it to Burgum. And if I'm being personally honest, if I would have a guess for the person who's going to be voted off for the next panel, more than likely it would probably be Burgum. And it's not necessarily due to his own fault. It's going to be due to his lack of ability to say what he says. Burgum didn't have a lot of time to talk. He was completely ignored in a lot of instances. The position that he is most educated with when it comes to energy policies and technology policies, they didn't ask him a single question in reference to it. They would go a long time without him even getting a question asked to him. He would have to intervene to say something. So yeah, Burgum was definitely shafted in this panel, and with that said, he probably will get kicked off for the next one. With that said, let's talk about a little bit of what Burgum did today to kind of, at the very least, give him some praise for some of the things he referred to. He said that Joe Biden was in big part with interfering with the economy. He did blame the left in referencing, mental health issues and referencing family morale and the loss of integrity, or not integrity, but loss in faith of the police department. So those are a few things he referred to. He thinks that the healthcare system is subsidized too much by the government, and that is in part due to the crazy healthcare prices for the citizens, and that they shouldn't do that. He referenced that should issue states should have individual state rights, and referencing education when they were talking about parental rights to whether or not they should know about a kid and whether or not they're changing their gender identity. He was he stood firm on the idea that this is not something the federal government should do a policy about, and that is something specifically done. That should be specifically done for the state government. I love how he kind of sets a ground and he doesn't move his position by giving the federal government more power than they are technically offered in the Constitution. He also thinks that we can create more jobs everywhere, which will help the economy, a very popular selling point for Republicans. He thinks that education, like I said, is something that all states should do, should be in charge of. But he thinks that innovation, creating more innovation schools, so instead of school choice, we just need to make the schools better by innovation, is something I very much agree with. He did bolster a little bit considering North Dakota had the highest SET scores, so he kind of referencing that his plans were working. He also referenced that his state is also the leader of energy production. So in terms of energy policies, he knows what he's talking about. And he has been doing the most in referencing border security. So again, he knows what he's talking about. So he said he brought up tangible evidence of things that he's doing individually to say that this is something I could do at the federal government level as well. And last thing he referenced is government efficiency, something that he think will be better for kind of making sure that the federal government was, I think it was, what was it referring to? Increasing the efficiency of the government. I think it was worry for, I don't remember. I'm not gonna pretend I remember. I don't remember. Okay, I've been speaking a lot, but I got three more, and these are the three most important individuals in today's panelists. We got Desantis, Vivek, and Nikki Haley. All right, who do I think is third place? In my personal opinion, I think the person who ended up in third place today was Vivek Ramaswamy. I think Vivek took a huge blow today, and he was destroyed on a lot of different fronts, and we're gonna address that in a second. I'm talking a little bit slower, getting a little tired, throat's giving out, but that is crazy. Pause. My voice is giving out. How about that one? So I think Vivek started out very well. He talked about how he had sympathy for workers, and that instead of like protesting like these businesses, they should protest the White House, and that they should do that to advocate for better economic policies. I don't know if protesting the White House will create that change. I think it's kind of ludicrous, but I like the sentiment at the very least. He also said something that was really good and a really smart strategy. He said the Republican Party was divided right now with classical Republicans and populist Republicans, and that they should reunite to create a stronger Republican Party. The funny thing about the fact that he said this is the fact that Vivek in the first panel was attacking all these government officials, all these panelists. So that's why later on, when so many people attacked him, and Nikki Haley brought up, well, last panel, even though you're saying, oh, we should be united now and not do the personal shots, you were doing the same exact thing in the first panel. So that, even though I agree with the sentiment, the fact that he was doing the exact opposite in the first panel made the words a little bit hollow. He also referenced something that I completely disagree with, and probably the worst thing that he said today, was that he would end the birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants. He brought this up, and obviously Tim Scott agreed with this sentiment. And he said that the people don't know what the 14th Amendment means. And when he referenced the fact that they should, if they're born in the country and abide by the rules and laws and jurisdiction, they should be a citizen. And even though it says that, he says that's not what it means because it doesn't. His logic wasn't really profound. And he brought a Mexican diplomat as an example of why illegal immigrant children who are raised in America, grew up in our culture, grew up around our people, grew up in our society, those people shouldn't have citizenship. I think that was an absolute ridiculous thing to say, Vivek. I think you are very ignorant and very foolish for saying something that dumb. And that is honestly, I can see like you're about to lose so many Latino votes, honestly. That was such a dumb thing to say. I am against like open borders. I'm against having a bunch of illegal immigrants in the country, but the kids that are born here saying they don't have citizenship when they're born, like what do you expect how is a baby going to get citizenship? That is ridiculous. That's so dumb. He did bring up a good point in referencing mental health care. He thinks that they should create better mental health care programs. Now, his solution for a better program is less drugs, and I agree. So I agree with the less drugs part. But he said more faith-based programs. I don't know how much that's gonna go over because not everybody's faith-based. So, I get the sentiment. I get the sentiment. So I'm not even gonna kind of slander you for that. But he also said something that is also very, very dumb. He said teens shouldn't use social media. I have a pretty interesting stance in referencing social media. If you want to listen to that, of course, you can go to my prior podcast episodes. But the issue here is one, saying teens shouldn't use social media is, again, dumb. Technically, it should be it's like illegal in certain areas, but they expect that you can create a federal ban on them using social media is stupid. It's foolish. It will never get passed. But the problem here is that Vivek was attacked for this because he would go on TikTok and he made a TikTok with him and Jake Paul dancing. The same Vivek who's against China apparently, who's against teens using technology or social media. Sorry. And when they were grilling him for using TikTok and doing the same thing that he's against, his response was basically saying that Vivek can use TikTok because it helps his presidency. But he also thinks it should be banned for teens. But he also said he wants to appeal to young people. It's such a dumb thing to say. Like, honestly, Vivek is reeling right now. And then he got creamed by this. It was so dumb to say. He also wants militarized border, fair play. He thinks that parents should have the right to know their kid's gender. He said we need peace in Ukraine, but he also kind of wants to stop helping Ukraine with the Russia situation. He thinks that people should be put back to work, to lower gas prices, Federal Reserve. He wants to put them in place. Sorry, escaped through it. Been awake for a long time. One thing that I give him credit for is like making sure we have better dollar stability. He did say he wanted to create more jobs, but then he said he wants to fire 75% of administration, governmental administration. He wants to fire 75%. He wants to stop shackling businesses. He has something called the zero-based budget. He thinks that the government should start their budget from zero. And then when it comes to supporting Trump, he was very active that Trump's a great president. So, like I said, Vivek had a lot of L's today. He didn't have as much time to talk compared to the first panel. He didn't have as much to say. And a lot of his points were, some decent points, I would say. But some points that were terrible, and then some things he would get grilled on because he's backtracking. So yeah, Vivek did not have a good performance today, in my personal opinion. And next we got Ron DeSantis. I think Ron DeSantis would be in second place. I think he had a bounce back personally. I think he performed better today than he's ever performed before. And with that said, honestly, he didn't really have a lot of hiccups. He did a little bit of the America, America, America when he was patting himself on the back about his being in the military, about him, meeting these different individuals. He was just playing the, oh yeah, I'm such a great guy. I live in America, America, America. So he did a lot of that, which was kind of hollow to me, but it would appeal to some like casual voters, I guess, the general populace, of course. He started off by attacking Trump for not being there. He attacked Trump a few times for not being at the panel, not being discussing his points. So, another big Trump attacker today. He talked about his economic policies, about cutting taxes and all these other things. I didn't write it all down. He said a lot of things, but he did say a few things on how you would increase the economy. He said he wants to deter and cut economic ties from China. He actually said he wants to ban CCP institutions, stuff that kind of, support Confucius, for example. If you don't know what the CCP is, it's the Chinese Communist Party. My only issue here is like I get where you're coming from because we want to be like America, right? You want to be, and we want to have a national identity. But like, I don't know how you enforce this because this is exactly what we think freedom of speech is against, right? If people want to support certain Chinese, philosophies and Chinese, unless it's like against American interest, to say that we should like ban these institutions seems kind of like dictatorial, right? Because now we're choosing what institutions we allow certain people to support. So that's kind of against the American way of life. So that's why I think that one is kind of weird, in my personal opinion. He thinks we should do a better job in supporting the police, which I agree with. He said he did want to get rid of left-wing prosecutors. I don't know how that made any sense. Like, what? You want to? Isn't that how? What's a term that's racist against political parties? Is there a term? Is there politicist? Are you politicist? Is it politicism? Maybe that, because that's what it sounds like. I don't know how you're just gonna look for left wing prosecutors and get them fired. That sounds ridiculous to me. He would say that he would send the military after drug cartels. You know what I'm saying? We didn't like drug cartels. We're not a fan of drug cartels here. They're not good for business. We should become more energy dominant. Bidenomics is not good. He's pro school choice, parents' bill of rights. Beat the Chinese economy. He's another individual who wants to ban or abandon Ukraine. He said something like, we need to secure our own borders. That's just a territorial dispute, undermining the Chinese-Russian war. Not Chinese, Russian-Ukraine war, and think that we should put all resources to our borders. I mean, I think it's just dumb to think that we need to. The only way we could protect our borders is by leaving Ukraine. That sounds stupid in my personal opinion. I think we're just not doing a good job protecting the border because we're just not doing a good job protecting the border. I think it's like as simple as that for me. Biden is doing a terrible job regarding it. When they referenced the abortion question on like how you would appeal to pro-choice voters, he said, "I deny the question. I don't," and basically said, "Screw the pro-choice voters." That's basically what he said, if I'm being honest. But DeSantis said no TDI. What did I mean by that? No T. Oh, Total Drama Island. Yeah, I gave him points for the fact that they tried to do this Total Drama Island at the end of the show, where they were basically say write a name and who gets voted off the island. DeSantis says that's ridiculous. We're all professionals. That's stupid. And he said something that was good when he said polls don't vote presidents, voters do. Bar DeSantis. Shout out to you. Does he say anything good? Not really. So we'll leave the last segment. I'll pull all my energy together to the candidate that I favor, but I also think did by far the best job. Like, I think Nikki Haley did really good last time, but I don't think she played the politics game as well as Vivek personally. Um, so even though my bias had Nikki Haley, I could see why people would vote Vivek, because Vivek was very rambunctious and all that jazz or whatever. I think Nikki Haley won on the policy front and killed on the politics front, where she was cooking. Vivek, Trump, Scott, all of them got cooked by her. It was nasty. They even set up a question where Tim Scott had the opportunity to go against Nikki Haley. He tried, he failed. Let's go over what Nikki Haley was talking about. Now, when they talked about the federal spending, she said the federal spending is bad. She talked about it. She said she would do things very similar to Desantis, where he kind of named his policies. She named her. She said eliminate the gas tax. She said increase, cut taxes, and some other things. So, just like DeSantis, and I'd say Vivek did this as well, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think he did. They were giving actual things that they would do in terms of increasing the economy. She said she would defund sanctuary cities and hire more border agents at the border to deal with the immigration situation. So less resources to sanction a lot of the illegal immigrants and more protection to prevent illegal immigrants in America in the first place is something she's a strong advocate for. Another thing they brought up is regarding the federal budget. Because the government is taking a long time to set a federal budget right now, her bar was that no pay, no budget. If they can't figure out a federal budget, and she brought up, I think the last 50 years, they only got the federal budget deadline on time 4 times. She said if they don't make it on time, no pay, no budget. You're not getting paid if the budget's not on time. Low key, how much people in the comments would be in favor for that? Because taking so long to figure out a budget is just, not caring enough, honestly. That's what I personally think. Not caring enough. No pay, no budget. I'm in for that. She talked about criminal justice a little bit. She backs criminal justice. She backs the police force. She backs, creating a better criminal justice system. Very similar to a lot of the Republicans here. They want a better criminal justice system, of course. She did refer back to China and talking about the companies relating to China, and that if we have companies here that are supporting China, that they should be dealt with. That's a big thing. She did call out Vivek for being on TikTok. So when he referred back to, teens and social media, she said, weren't you on TikTok? So Vivek shot, cooked him. Another thing that she brought up in regards to the mental health care system is she wants to make the billing process open. So basically, she wants to make the process in terms of figuring out these budgets and figuring out these pay when it comes to the doctors, the hospital, these healthcare or institutions, the big pharmaceutical companies. She wants to make it crystal clear and open on how they're determining their price, because once she does that, she thinks that by letting the people know how these prices are determined, it'll give more awareness on how these people are screwing the people over. And she said she wants to create more competition for healthcare as well, which after we know the budget and we know there's other places that handle it better, that competition is just more healthy and decreasing these prices in the long run. So that's a very interesting solution to kind of deal with the healthcare system. Sorry, my mustache hair is getting in my nose and it's itching my nose. Sorry, you got to see me almost pick my nose. Interesting solution. I think very strong one. Very strong solution. Like I said, she actually says solutions, which is why I give her so much credit. She said in terms of the education system, in order to kind of, fix that, she's in favor with better reading levels. We need to get that reading level back on track, starting from very, very, very early on. Classroom transparency with the parents, and school choice, which is I'm not a fan of at the federal level, but better state plans and better programs that are created by the states themselves to incentivize better learning in general. So those are things that she's in favor for in terms of education. And she took another shot when it comes to Vivek. There's a little Vivek and Nikki back and forth. And, Vivek was getting schooled by Nikki Haley personally. She said, every time you talk, I get dumber. Mm. Shot, 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 shot. It's crazy. Uh, and then, like I said, she brought up the point that Vivek in the last panel was insulting everybody, and now he's trying to say, "Yo, we shouldn't be taking shots at everybody." With like, bro, weren't you doing the same thing? Another Vivek shot, cooking him. Honestly, um, bringing back the rhetoric she brought back last panel. Win for Russia is win for China. So letting Russia have Ukraine is bad for the country, bad for the America as a whole. Her solution in dealing with the drug cartels, which is a big question. Some people said bring a military. Some people said bring in the National Guard. She said make it a special ops operation. By that, we have it where secretly we're doing our best to deal with these drug cartels, and also we have it to where they're looking at China as well, who is sending fentanyl, sending are they sending fentanyl to America or China, Mexico? I should probably verify that. But also having special ops to look into that and them and like China's fentanyl, export and how it's affecting America basically. Um, she said she's also pro energy, better energy for the America, better energy policies for America, better oil, oil, all that stuff. She did cook a few people. When she was referring to China and all the fentanyl policies, she cooked Trump, saying that Trump is pro-China, pro letting China do business in America, pro certain Chinese policies in reference to America, and certain exports and imports from China to America. So she cooked Trump referencing that. She cooked Desantis referencing his energy bill, his energy solutions, saying that he was pro-energy, but she said, well, if you're pro-energy, why are you against fracking and why are you against offshore drilling? And what he said that's a lie, and when I looked it up, that wasn't a lie. What I looked up said that DeSantis is against fracking, which is a way to drill oil, and it says he is against offshore drilling as well. So DeSantis lied. Nikki caught him, and she schooled him. So again, cooking him. And also she said he subsidized certain green policies as well. When she went up against Tim Scott, he got cooked because he went off saying that he would do these different things in terms of increasing jobs. Nikki Haley went up and was like, Tim, you were there for 12 years and you didn't do any of that. So you're lying, is basically what she said. She said, what actually happened is the debt increase and the spending increase under your watch. And in response, Tim Scott tried to cook Haley and was like, well, Nikki Haley, you were in favor for increasing the gas price by 10 cents. Before I continue, Tim Scott's way to cook Nikki Haley when she was governor, he's saying, well, you increase gas prices by 10 cents. Nikki Haley responds by saying, bring it, Tim, cooking him before answering the question. And then she says, well, your information's wrong. In fact, what happened is I was against gas price increases, but they kept on pushing it. So in favor of the 10-cent increase, I was going to lower the state income tax. What do you call that, ladies and gentlemen? What do you call that? Compromise. So for a 10-cent gas increase, I'm lowering the state income tax by 2 to 3%. Talk about a bargain. So yeah, she cooked Tim Scott, she cooked Vivek, she cooked Donald Trump, and she cooked DeSantis all in the same day. All in the same panel. Like, it was brutal, boys and girls. So I think Nikki Haley learned from her mistakes in the first one, where she was just talking about policy and her solutions. She did the same thing, but she learned from her mistake. And in this one, she was like, let me get my spatula. Let me get my spoon and let me cook. And she was just cooking these people, bro. Nobody had anything to say back to Nikki Haley. Like, they were all cooked. Honestly, they're all cooked. So Nikki Haley, in my opinion, performed by far the best on the panel. I think she performed. I think her rhetoric and her solutions was very good as always. And with that said, like I said before, Nikki Haley would be the best Republican candidate for the Republicans. As I said already, she's the best individual to cook Joe Biden. And now she showed today that I can not only cook Joe Biden, but I'll cook every one of you here. So I'm guessing after this performance, what is going to follow is that on the third primary debate, all these people are going to be ready to attack Nikki Haley, is my guess. Vivek got attacked ruthlessly because he's the one who attacked them first. But now Nikki Haley had the smoke, and now we're going to have to see if they have the smoke back for her. It's going to be very interesting to see, considering nobody could challenge her right now. She's up. So that is all I got for today. Hope you guys did enjoy this, shorter podcast episode breaking down the Republican debate panel for all of you here today. Of course, we didn't have Donald Trump. He skipped out again because he thinks he's that guy. But with that said, it was very entertaining. I think it was a better debate panel today because I think people were actually saying policies and solutions. But I think in today, Nikki Haley performed by far the best. And by next panel, I think Burgum will be kicked off the island. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, support the podcast, rate it 5 stars. Go to my website, www.purplepoliticalbreakdown.com, to see all the content. Hope you guys enjoyed. Y'all have a good one. Take care and peace.